David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. We have today an evening with George Lazenby. This was part of a very Bond farewell. This was the farewell to the Spy Museum's James Bond exhibit. The Bond Experience was invited. We were able to get in early, kind of do a backstage type of revolve with the head of PR and marketing. But really the culmination of the evening, besides having an amazing time with friends and connecting with a lot of new friends and having people come up and say how much they like the Bond Experience, which we love that. So please keep doing that. The culmination was really to listen to George Lazenby, who I think most of you know was a one-time Bond in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, 1969. And if you know anything about George Lazenby, he's a very colorful character. And the reason I say it like that is he has some really interesting stories. So this is about 42 minutes. And if you imagine, the Spy Museum was fantastic. They allowed us, we were one of the only ones to be able to film this besides the Spy Museum themselves. So I had this kind of cradled on my lap. From time to time, I apologize. It may get a little shaky. I may switch hands because one hand was falling asleep. So that's just the reality of it, but it's worth it. I will tell you, some of you will absolutely be titillated by these stories. A lot of them are new ones. You thought you heard every story, but there's a lot of new ones. Some of you will be offended by them. And the reason I say that is if you're typically offended by certain language or certain aspects, this may not be the vlog for you. But if you're interested in hearing from Bond, George Lazenby, this is the one to listen to. One other aspect I'm going to talk about, we're going to show you some pictures of this, is after the event, Anders, who's George's manager, and a small group of us went across the street to the Smith, and we were able to have drinks and some food with George Lazenby. So that was kind of interesting for a lot of people. A lot of my friends were able to converse and talk with him and get to know him a little bit more and just extend the evening out. So it was a very surreal way to celebrate Global James Bond Day. But without further ado, you're not here to hear me talk. You're here to hear George Lazenby. So George, we'll let you take it away.
That's for you.
Really? What do you do with that?
I think you're gonna talk into it. And that's for you, because we're supposed to toast these beautiful people.
Okay.
Here's to you, and here's to you all on Global James Bond Day.
Yeah.
All right, George, you're a very good sport. Thank you for joining us. And
you know that.
Well, I've seen you before, once or twice, and I've drug you out of a bar just a little bit ago. That was pretty fun. So you've given me some hints that you haven't seen the movie in a little while, but I'm gonna ask you, there's a really great scene at the beginning where you say, hey, this never happened to the other guy. Everyone know that one?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit, like, how did that happen?
It happened because I was doing my own stunts on the movie, and some of them were a bit scary. And I'd say, I bet you the other fellow didn't have to do this. When I was jumping out of helicopters and God knows what. And Peter Hunt, I believe, told somebody later, no one's seen him yet. If we kill him, we can do it all again. And I didn't know that, so I thought, actors did their own stunts. And that's why you got those fight scenes close up and all that stuff. And that basically helped me get the job. I knocked out the stunt coordinator. My dad didn't tell me to miss by this much.
Did you ever learn to pull your punches? Because I've heard you say that before.
No, I did. There was a Russian stunt guy that was going to kill me if I did it again. So I learned it real fast.
That's just great. Well, thank you for that. And were you a Bond fan? before?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't have been able to play it otherwise. I mean, I've never met an actor before I got that job.
Yeah.
And I just imagine, do your best you can to copy Connery. And this is what they had to change my walk, because I walk like a drunken Australian. And I had this weird Australian accent. They changed my accent, my walk, taught me how to breathe when I'm frustrated and scared.
And how is that?
Well, I had this woman that was teaching the English Prime Minister, Wilson, I think his name was. And she used to lay me on the ground and put a foot on my stomach and a match in my mouth. I'd talk like an Englishman, you know. And meanwhile, Harold Wilson, that's his name, he'd be going out as I was going in, so she must have been a good teacher. Because half England couldn't understand his northern accent. You know?
So then she polished him up?
She was polishing up the Prime Minister and me at the same time. In a nice way, of course.
So it sounds like they were trying to make you like Connery, but were there ways that you particularly wanted to make sure you were different than him as Bond?
No, I had no choice. I just, I did the best I could, like the scene you saw there briefly, where I come in.
We're gonna get it back, I swear to God.
I come in and I go down on my knee. And the director said, "Don't do that, do it like Connery. Come in and turn and do this." And so I did it about 15 times the way they wanted, and they ended up using more I did. So, and it was like on the beach in Portugal, they said, "Say that line of yours." I said, "What line?" "This never happened to the other fellow." So I just said, "This never happened to the other fellow." And they left it in. And so I never got paid for that. For writing the script. Come on.
Well, that was a question I had about, there's so much wonderful humor in the movie. You're looking at a Playboy magazine at one point. Lots of funny notes. You're toasting the Queen in a framed image. Were those ad-libbed? Is that you? Is that a combination?
It was what? Ad-libbed?
Ad-libbed?
Ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a bit of ad-libbing here and there, but most of the time it was like when you see me come into the room and throw the hat. I was any Bond that could do that.
And we'll got that for you.
And then remember the line.
No wonder they wanted you back. Yeah, that's pretty great.
Now the funny part about it all was I was messing around with a girl, with a friend of mine, and he said, "You got to help me out." I said, "What?" He said, "I got this date with the biggest agent in town. I want to be an actor." And I said, "Well, what's that got to do with me?" He said, "My girlfriend's coming back into town. You gotta meet her on this corner and go to a screening with her." And I did. Her name was Maggie Abbott. She was a biggie. And we saw this screening, and I didn't see the movie because the Beatles were there, the Rolling Stones were there, and I'm going, "Oh, Jesus." And then I won't tell you what happened, but I went back to Paris. And this is a bit weird, because I was in just entering a girl's apartment in Paris, and the phone was ringing. And she says, "It's Patu." I said, "How can that be? Nobody knows I'm with you." And it was Maggie Abbott. She'd called my flatmate, said I went to La Capole restaurant, and the maitre d' said I left with this girl, and she'd track me down.
They sound like spies.
You'd think I'd think it was an important call. But she said, "You got to come back to London. I think you're right for the role of," and I said, "What?" "I'm not going to tell you on the phone. You got to come back to London straight away." So I hang up, and I won't tell you what happened. But I forgot about the call. And about 3 weeks later, I go into London, and the same guy, he says, "What did Maggie want you for?" "Oh yeah, she called me in Paris. I'm damned if I know." And he said, "Let's go see her." And if he hadn't have done that, I would never have got the part. I went up there, and she made him wait outside. And I came in the room, I said, "What's this? I've never spoken in front of a camera in my life." And she said, "I think you're right for James Bond." I said, what? And she said, I said, what makes you think that? She said, you've got something that the 3,000 other guys don't have. 3,000? She said, they've seen 3,000 guys, tested 300 on film, and they're still looking for what you got. And I said, what is it? She said, arrogance. She said, you're so shit sure of yourself. I've never met anybody like you. So I went off to see the producers, and they threw me out because I wasn't in the union and blah, blah, blah. And I noticed that they were dressed like James Bond, all the guys going in there. And I had long sideburns that were fashionable in Paris to get laid. And then they had to have bell-bottom trousers, and Connery didn't wear that. And I was dressed like a hippie. So meanwhile, I go back to, I said, they won't let me in. He said, you gotta get in. And I wasn't in the union, so she couldn't get me an appointment. So I went back and I got my hair cut like Connery's. And an amazing thing, I went up to his tailor in not Savile Row, but the street next to it. And I said, give me a suit like Connery's. And they said, it takes 6 months. I said, what? That's how long they took in those days to make a suit. And I was walking out, they said, wait a minute, there's one here he didn't want. My arms were a little bit longer than Sean's, that's it. It fit perfectly. And I said, I'll take it, 100 pounds. In those days, it was like 10 weeks' wages. And so I got the suit, I got the haircut, and I went back to the same casting office, and I waited till the girl ducked down behind the counter to get something. I ran up the stairs, and fortunately, the casting director was on the phone with the producers. And I leaned on the door with the Rolex showing, and he said, who are you? He put his hand over the phone. I said, I heard you're looking for James Bond, you know. And he said, Harry, there's a guy, and he said, bring him over. Otherwise, if that guy would have not been on the phone and interviewed me, he'd have thrown me out. He would have figured out that I was full of shit. So, next thing, I go over there, and Harry's got his feet up on the desk. And I don't sit down in front of people with his feet up on the desk. So he's pointing at the chair right in front of his feet, and he's on the phone. And I went over and looked out the window. And then he said, tell me your life story. And I just told this casting guy a whole bunch of lies as I was walking across the road. I worked in China and Hungary and Russia and all these places I thought they couldn't check on. Meanwhile, he said, and then I was shitting myself. I'm thinking way over my head, I gotta get out of here. This guy's ruthless, you know. And he said to the casting guy, he said, when's the director coming back from Switzerland? And the director was Peter Hunt. He was gay. There's a reason for me telling you that. And he said, Friday at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, sir. So I said, I can't be here. They said, why not? I said, I'm doing a film in Paris. I was actually shitting myself and just wanted to get out of there. And so the guy said, how much will it cost us to keep you here till Friday? I said, 500 pounds, which is like 6 months' wages, the average Englishman in those days. He said, go down and see Stanley Zappel. He was the accountant. He'll give you 500 pounds. Be here at 4 o'clock on Friday. I said, shit, how do I get out of there? I go down and Stanley said, what's the check for? Because he just said, gives this guy 500 pounds, you know. So I said to come back on Friday. He said, what? No actor ever gets paid to come back. And so he said, I'll give you 250. I said, no, forget about it, I'm out of here. No, go. He gave me the 500 pounds. Then I get Maggie on the phone. She said, how'd you do? I said, they gave me 500 pounds to come back on Friday. George, be serious. I said, they did. I said, where are you? I said, I'm in the phone box, right outside the office. Oh, Jesus, stay there, I'm coming down. And don't lie to me. And so she comes down, sees the check, and she can't believe it. And so, but meanwhile, I went and had an acting lesson. I did. And I was with Ronan O'Reilly, the guy who started Radio Caroline, and with all the Beatles, because a neighbor of mine knew him, and I said, do you know an acting teacher? So I didn't know one. And he said, I know a guy, and called up. Ronan used to teach acting. So he comes along, and he said, I'll tell you whether you can act or not. He said, I'm going to hide this coin in the room here. I want you to go out, and when you come in, point to it. And he had 3 or 4 of his mates there, and I came in and I couldn't see it. He said, look down. I was down between my legs. I walked on it almost. He said, you've got to be able to chop out all the people in the room and just concentrate on the line and what you're getting in here for. So I went out again, I came in, I saw a little bit of it behind the picture on the shelf. He said, there! He said, you can act. I didn't know what he was talking about, but it gave me confidence. And so I go in to meet the director on Friday, and he is pissed. Because he was going to stay the weekend with his mates. He was gay, and he had all these friends in Switzerland. He was going to have a weekend with them. God knows what they would have done, but that was the story. And he's sitting there like this, tell me what you've done. He was really cheesed off, and I didn't know about the Switzerland thing until later. But, and I don't know what made me do this, but I said, Peter, I've never spoken in front of a camera in my life. And he said, what did you just say? And he got up and he started belly laughing, walking around the room. He says, you said you've never acted? He said, you've filmed two of the most ruthless men I've ever met in my life. They made me come back from Switzerland to see you. Stick to your story and I'll make you the next James Bond. So I go over to the office with Peter. Get him out of here. Harry and Cubby are saying, he's a closed peg. I'd done some modeling. And they had everything I'd done on the bloody screen. And he said, we'd be the laughing stock of the industry using a male model for James Bond. And Peter says, no, I want to test him. You're not testing him at the studio. It'll just make us look bad. So I end up testing at Harry's place. And yeah, they gave me a love scene. Ride a horse, swim. They said swim, and I can swim like a fish. So I dived in the pool and come up the other end. He said, no, we want to see on top of the pool, up on the water. So I did that for him, and this went on for about 4 months. Michael Caine was my friend on the weekend. He was under contract to Harry Saltzman. Tell George about acting. He never told me a play. And we just played table tennis and pool. And meanwhile, we're about 4 months into it, and I was thinking, this is bullshit, I gotta get out of here. Well, even one other thing they did that was funny. This guy, I met him later, and he told me why he came up to my room where they were putting me up in Grosvenor House, a nice suite. And he came up to the room, knocked on the door with this beautiful woman. He said, this girl wants to make love to you. And I said, really? So we climbed in and we're going for it in bed, and he's sitting there in a suit watching me. I was thinking, you know, it'd be like my mates that have their clothes off getting ready for seconds, you know? I ran into him about 2 years later. John Daly was his name, from Hemdale Films, and he came up to me, and he was a friend of theirs. And he came up to me and said, hi, I'm the guy that brought the girl up your room. This is after the Bond, a couple of years after. I said, yeah, what was all that about? Oh, they were worried because you'd been a male model, that you might be gay. And they wanted to find out whether you were or not. And Jesus, talk about getting tested. So they gave me the full 100% test. Meanwhile, during the film, I didn't like the idea of this film. You gotta be there at 7 o'clock in the morning and know all these lines. I'd never had it so bad. And then you only got 8 girls for 9 months. That was rough in those days. And finally they give me a helicopter at night to go anywhere I wanted to go, you know, in Switzerland. Because I was bitching about being on the mountain. And that was an actor who's difficult. Yeah, because I'm saying, I need to get off the hill. And I've been here. Oh, then I went into town. This is a true story. I went into a gun store. And I was with one of the stunt guys. I said, I want to buy that Luger there. And the guy said, you got a license? And the guy said, yeah, he's James Bond. He gave me the bloody Luger. I'm not kidding. So, what am I doing? I'm up on the mountain. I got one guy throwing cans up and I'm shooting. You reckon and that didn't make the crew nervous. So, next thing I know, the police are up in my room, give us a gun, and Harry's with them. They're going to stop the film unless I give them the gun. But I'd gotten 2 guns. And I gave them the one I didn't want. It was a .45, which is all good, you know. And I still had it until I gave it up when some drug people come into my house one night from the police force. And they said, "You've been smoking marijuana." And I said, "No, I haven't." There's a big bowl of marijuana seeds right at the table. And I hadn't been. And some other people, I had 5 girls staying there. So it was like, they would smoke, some were smoking it. And it was going out the window, and the Bobby walking along the beach was getting stoned. You know? Finally, the guy said, "No, I gotta charge you with it." I said, "Look, I tell you what, I got a Luger." You what? "I got a Luger. You can have it." And I'd handed it in at lunch. Oh, that was funny. I was getting on the plane in Switzerland, and the police came and called me up to the front of the plane, and they tucked the Luger into my belt and just walked off the plane. And I was with one of the PR guys on the plane. He'd already asked me if I had any guns on me. And I told him no, and I didn't when he asked. Now I had. So I get to London, and they said, "You got anything to declare?" And I said, "Yeah, this." And he says, "Is it loaded?" I said, "I don't know. It was handed to me. I don't know." And he said, "Would you mind checking?" So I did check, and there was 2 rounds in it, and the PR guy's going, "Oh." He's walking around. And they just gave me a little pink slip for it and said, "You can pick it up on the way out." And I said, "Thanks." And then I wheeled and dealed with these cops to give them the pink slip if they don't charge you with the drugs. So they said, "Yeah, fair enough." So somewhere the Luger's there. And I just thought the world was, you know, when you're James Bond, you start to believe your own bullshit. You start to think that I'm somebody, you know. Aston Martin caught me, some press guy photographed me riding to work on a motorcycle. Because Triumph and BSA both gave me motorcycles. And I had a Rolls-Royce limo. And I'd throw my briefcase in the Rolls-Royce and get on the motorcycle and do 100 mile an hour up to Pinewood. And some press guy took a picture of me. So the insurance company got on to Harry, "Get that crazy bastard off that motorcycle," you know. So I ended up getting Aston Martin to give me an Aston Martin. Or they said, what are we going to do to get you off that motorcycle? I said, "Just ask." I said, "Come on." And all they had to do was say, "Get off the motorcycle." You know, it was going to hurt the insurance. And they gave me an Aston Martin. So I had the Rolls Royce follow me with the briefcase, and I drove the Aston Martin. I don't know where they got the idea I was hard to get along with. Yeah. Anyway, oh yeah, Ford gave me a Cougar, which was in the film, and I didn't know, I forgot. And it was in Pinewood for 2 years, and the tax man came after me to pay the taxes on this Cougar. You know, he'd keep it there for 2 years. And I said, "Well, I don't want it." They said, "Well, you can get rid of it if it doesn't exist." And Richard Harris had got a Rolls Royce the same way, another actor, Richard Harris. And so what they do in this case, rather than buy it, because it's not worth the amount of taxes, but it's 2 years old, so they burn them. So we sat there and they burnt both cars in the middle of Pinewood Studios. They don't exist. How can you pay tax on something that doesn't exist? And that was the way around that. And things like that were happening. And, but it was, you know, I wasn't educated, so I didn't know anything about anything. You know, I just lived my life. And as it, you know, from day to day, basically. And it's, you know, it's worked out because I didn't do another Bond movie, so I've had a great life. You know, the worst thing in the world would have been having to do another Bond movie. Everyone said, "Didn't you like it?" No. But it was fun watching them, but it's not fun doing them. And so that was the end of that. Anyway, any questions?
if you are able to battle your way to the microphone, if you can, yeah. Or if I can hear it, I can repeat it.
Okay.
Yes. Quick question, George. Do you have any of the toys or anything left from the film that you were in?
No, what happened was I had about 5 suitcases full of clothes because I had copies of everything. I had skis that were made especially for George Lazenby written on them and all that stuff. And I was cluttering up the hallway where I was living with this beautiful lady I happened to have a baby with and got married to. But she started to get a little bossy, you know, and she wanted me to clean up the hallway. And I said, it's all right, just leave them there, they're fine. I came home one day and they're all gone. I said, where are they? Where's all my suitcases and stuff? She said, you don't use them, I gave them the Salvation Army. I sold a suit for about $25,000 the other day. You know, they just call me, you sell things. But anyway, that's just part of the draw. Yes?
Odd question. Name one Bond movie other than On Your Majesty's Secret Service that you would have loved to have been a part of.
What part?
Like, you know, what's one other Bond movie that you really love watching?
Well, I was in love with the Bond movies up until I had to work on one. Dr. No was great. That was the first one. I saw them all. Goldfinger, From Russia with Love.
What do you think of Daniel Craig's films?
I have not seen it.
Check them out, they're pretty good.
Well, I don't believe that.
Thanks so much.
Hi George, I have a quick question for you. So I saw your documentary, Becoming Bond, and I absolutely loved it. But as many people know, movies don't cover the full detail of a story. Can we expect a memoir at all in the future?
There's one that a guy's been making in Australia. This never happened to the other fellow, it's called. But it's never, he's been making it for about 15 years. I don't know when it's going to come out, but it was, it's pretty, he's got a lot of detail in there.
Really?
A bit frightening, yeah.
I sure love to read it. And I have one more question too. I know you're a fan of tennis, correct?
Not particularly. I used to get drunk with John Newcomb back in.
I read somewhere that you love tennis. I just wanted to know if you had a favorite tennis player.
If you want?
If you had a favorite tennis player.
Favorite? Yeah, but someone's married to her. I ain't gonna say it anymore.
Thank you so much, George.
Cheers. Uh-oh.
First of all, huge honor. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I don't actually have to ask the first part of my question since you just answered it, but you have not watched any of the Bond films since you starred in it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if you had to pick one gadget in any of the films that you have seen, which one would you pick?
A gadget? Jesus.
Gadget, weapon.
You want to
however you wanna
rebreathe it?
label
Huh? I'd never used gadgets. I'm not into
Gadget or a weapon, whatever way you would label it.
No, I'd probably, I could use an Aston Martin or something like that. Yeah.
It's right, it's a little tall. So my question is also about the documentary Becoming Bond. I just watched it last night, it's amazing. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking a little more about what your experience was like revisiting your experience with the franchise through the documentary and what it was like making the documentary Becoming Bond. Thanks.
Becoming Bond was easy. I just had lunch 4 times with these guys, and they paid me and bought the lunch. I couldn't lose. And then I went to see it, and people were shocked that it was good. And it's one of those things. It's all true. You know, I can't tell lies because I can't remember. I can remember truths, but I can't remember lies. And so it's, I have lied, but when people ask me a question about something I lied about, I can't remember. So, but the truth, Oh yeah, I remember that.
Hi George, I'm April. In spite of my accent, I'm an Australian citizen representing the Embassy of Australia. This question is...
Can I go back now?
This is for Australians. In your time, you were a trailblazer. But can you comment on why so many Australian actors today are so successful overseas?
Because of me.
I'm also technically representing Australia, even though I'm not Australian.
You never know it.
Fair enough. My question is, James Bond has always embodied this type of suave and arrogance and sexuality. If James Bond was to ever reincarnate himself as a female, what types of characteristics would that female encompass in order to be something like 007? I knew it.
Do you want to sit?
No. Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, she'd have to be seductive, and she'd have to not be afraid of getting information any way she could. Oh dear. No, I don't know. A female James Bond, I think that it's becoming that way in life. I mean, the way women are starting to take over the world. But it's not a bad thing. It's just that it's different. You know, I was raring to go in the 60s and 70s. I had to hide out sometimes, but nowadays it's the other way around. You poor guys. I should have been back in the 60s. But, you know, that's just society, the way it turns around. You know, you get the Victorian era, and then you get the hippie era. How can you compare? I mean, they're totally different. And you just got to go with the flow. And I think that if she was a spy, I'd just tell her not to get caught.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. So I was wondering, you were talking about how you didn't have acting experience going into the movie. What was it like for you working with Telly Savalas and Diana Rigg?
Well, here I go bragging again. I remember Telly, Diana Rigg and I were going to have, I wouldn't say, we didn't have an affair. Down the road, she said, I don't mess around with any of the other girls. And I didn't. I was with the receptionist at the hotel at the time. and I was in the stunt tent because there's a lot of mattresses in there, you know. And the bloody stunt man, Diana's walking up the path, and the stunt man lifted the side of the tent up. And here I am, fully fledged into it. And I said, hi. And she went. And that was the end of our affair. We never got there, but what was the question?
How did you like working with Telly Savalas and Diana Rigg, not being in
Now, Telly, he was cool. Peter Hunt told Telly, you know, whatever you can teach the boy, teach him. And we did a scene together. And it was one where I had to throw a knife or something into a thing, and I was better than the knife thrower. Of course, I was a champion dart player before that. I came in and shook with the knife, and I'd give the light, and Telly says, he doesn't need any help. And that was the first lesson he gave me in the last lesson. No, nobody gave me any advice. It was weird. Peter Hunt told me I was putting on a bit of weight when I did that scene in Portugal. So I ran up and down the beach a couple of times. And that was it. But no one really helped me in acting. I don't know why, because they probably said, leave him alone, he's doing what we want to do. And don't confuse him. He might have to think about something. But no, it was hard work. I mean, 9 months, 7 in the morning, I was on every day. And doing second unit as well, because I was doing my stunts. And I'd never get a day off.
Did you have a favorite stunt? that you did?
A famous what?
Favorite stunt that you did in the movie, or did you hate them all?
I hate them all. They hurt. I remember in the bell room, they had these fake bells that when we started fighting, they flew around and didn't look real. So they put the real ones in there. I got dings all over me. I mean, that was, but I didn't know any better or different. I didn't know what other actors did. A guy had some experience would say, no, I want the fake ones back. I didn't know you could do that. I remember getting some good lines in. I was getting my per diem, which was $100 a week or something. And Harry was in there. And I said to Harry, how much did the other fella get? And he looked at the accountant, and the accountant looked back at him. He said, tell him, $1,000 a week. And I looked at Harry, I said, I just went like that. He said, okay, give him 1,000. So I piled up all this cash in a briefcase, right? Because there's nothing to spend it on up in the bloody mountain. So Telly walks past one day and I got the briefcase open. He said, hey kid, you play poker? Yeah, you guessed it. He had me half that briefcase in about half an hour. And Harry was walking past and he saw it. And he said, move over, and took my place. And he said, no! Because Harry used to be a professional gambler. And he lost all his money and gave it up. He took over and put all my money back in the briefcase. And he said, leave my boy alone.
That was nice.
Yeah,
That was good.
that was good.
George, you're a member of a very exclusive club. Only 5 other actors have played Bond in the Eon series.
That
Over the
many?
years, only 5 others, so it's more exclusive than the Senate.
Well, there's only one when I played.
I know. Exactly. Over the years, has your path ever crossed with the late Roger Moore, Sean Connery, any of the others? And what exactly do you guys say to each other? Is there a secret
I'll
handshake?
tell you something.
now?
It's a real brag. This one. It's in this film. This Never Happened. The other fellow. This guy went to Switzerland, interviewed Roger Moore, and they said, and he asked Roger, "What do you think of George Lazenby?" This is on film. If he'd kept it up, none of us would have been Bond. It's on film.
And also, for Bond fans of the series, On Her Majesty's Secret Service holds a special place. All these years later, almost 50 years later, why do you think that movie, even though it was your only film, still holds such high regard?
Because of me. No, I mean, it was well written. It's got great music, Louis Armstrong, and it's got good storyline. I mean, what?
It sticks very closely to the novel, as I understand.
Exactly, and it had a good, everyone worked on it, was very good. And meanwhile, the wife didn't last very long, but a lot of guys like that.
Was that at all, that is such a tragic scene, and if we ever get our clip up, we will show this at the end. But I watched it the other morning, and I know what's going to happen, and I had tears in my eyes. Were you sad? Were you cracking up? What was it really like to shoot that scene?
I was trying to be an actor, and really working on being a method actor for whatever was coming into my mind. And as soon as I did the scene where she was on my lap, dead, tears just flowed out of my face. And Peter Hunt said, cut! James Bond doesn't cry, cut the tears. So I had to do the shot again without the tears.
Because it's hard to watch.
Because I would get, anything I know about acting is get in there and do what is happening. And that's why the stuntmen didn't like me too much, because I sometimes just slip and hit one of them. And they got their chins out, they can't protect themselves, because they're supposed to get hit. Yeah. Anyway, that wasn't funny. Oh dear. Anybody got any other?
Being a James Bond fan, trying to latch on to any of the things with the franchise, social media-wise or whatever, I followed a George Lazenby on Twitter about a year ago. Is that actually George Lazenby, or Robin following some random man?
I'm not on Twitter. So I did have a guy want to sign me up one time, and I went through it, and I thought, no, it's going to be work.
I'll be sure to unfollow.
Back in 1984, when I was 12 years old, you did a TV soap opera with Tina Louise called Rituals that lasted for a year. Do you have any memory of that TV show?
I needed the money. Yeah, I had what was it called, the Equalizer? I came up with Michael Sloan and put that together, and we did the test for it. David Hemmings directed the test, the act, and I wardrobes, and I got back to my house, and they said, we'll pick you up in the morning at 7 o'clock, our car will be there for you. The car didn't show up, so I called Michael Sloan, the writer on the thing, and he said they got a phone call. And this happened to me a lot. Every time I get something good going, he's under contract to us, or whatever they say, and it would fall through. So that's why I didn't do anything major afterwards. It was, I was under contract to them, whether they like it or not. And the funny thing is, I found out later on that the fact that I'd never been an actor before, the contract didn't mean anything. Because I didn't know what was in it. I'd signed a letter of intent, not the contract. And so that's why they couldn't come for me. And it was tough. You know, they offered me, as you saw in that documentary, they offered me millions cash anywhere in the world to do another Bond movie. And it was hippie time. It wasn't cool, you know, to be James Bond. I used to go in restaurants sometimes, and I was the only one in a suit with short hair, and they'd say, waiter! It was much harder to get laid. But you had to be a hippie in those days.
I understood that you were trying to make some suggestions to modernize the movie when you were in it with music.
I did.
What do you think, what would that have been like?
I don't know, but I like the music now that they chose.
Now you like it?
Yes. And it would have been silly to put in, you know, pop music. I had this, you know, like the Beatles or someone like that, you know. I was trying to talk them into using a current pop group. And they said, no, we're sticking with what we got. And it was right. When I look back on it, they were right for once.
George, huge fan. I have 3 brothers, and I can't tell you how many times we watch your film. So it's been around quite a few times in our house. I wanted to ask you about the stunt scenes. When you were skiing, there's that one scene where you're skiing on one ski. How easy or difficult was that to do?
That wasn't me. The insurance company made one clause: he must not ski.
Oh, you didn't?
Because the whole movie was written about skiing. And I did do a few passes with 2 skis, because I could ski like a regular guy, but that was Willie Bogner, I think, did that. He was a famous skier at the time, and he could ski blindfolded, that guy backwards. He was something else. He could ski better than he could walk. It was amazing.
So going back to the ending of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, there's long been a rumor that they were going to kill off Diana Rigg in the opening to Diamonds Are Forever. Were you aware of that?
Nope.
Or was it always just to kill her off at the end of On Her Majesty's?
That's all I knew. I mean, it was in the book, and I knew it, and it was in the script, and we did it that way. I think it was an amazing ending, too, because funny enough, I went to the premiere, and when I was walking out, bearded, everyone was, I thought, Jesus, they don't like my film. But that was just sad, you know, because of what happened to Diana. Anybody else?
I'm gonna stand up because I don't want to have to get over there. Just, George, have you seen the Austin Powers movies? What do you think of that?
No, I haven't. I was a Bond fan. I wasn't Austin Powers.
I was wondering about the working relationship with Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli. Was one more hands-on than the other? Did you prefer one to the other?
The film I did, they were both involved. I think later on something happened between them. Their wives didn't get along, and so when they were seeing if I was going to be right for the job, I'd go out one night with Harry and his wife, and one night with Cubby and his wife. And they were nice restaurants. And that's how they got to know me, and I couldn't figure out at first why they didn't go together. For dinner, they take their wives, right? And the wives didn't get along. I don't know why. I didn't bother to find out that, but they were both good hustlers, you know. They, I don't think Cubby knew much about making movies, but he knew what movie to get involved with, if you know what I mean. And that's when Harry was broke, and Cubby came in for 50 grand, took 50%. And Harry, his wife told me, he was hiding in the toilet to get away from debt collectors. It was that bad. But then he got the rights to the Bond movies, so he was a clever entrepreneur, or whatever you call him. And they don't make movies, they put it together. The people who make them, they know who to choose, and they're bloody good at it.
Okay, this will be our, Alexis, are you asking a question? This will be our last question. But you're not done yet.
We're going to have a new Bond at some point in the next few years, and I wondered what advice you would give to that person about becoming Bond.
Well, I could get a facelift and I think you've got to be sure of yourself, or at least act it like I did. And I think that came from my upbringing in Australia. You know, we'd go to the pub and they always go, you and me outside, you know, after we get 4 or 5 beers in, or maybe 10. But if you had that look on your face, like I ain't afraid of nobody, nobody wants to know you. And I think I picked that look up from drinking in Australian pubs. You know, at least they don't shoot you down there. They just punch you. You know? But those days were in Queanbeyan way back when, and Goulburn and places like that, in the country you had nothing better to do. Same after school. I mean, I can still remember some of those bastards that punched me for no reason. But, you know, that helped me out in life. You know, I was strong. I had a couple of guys come up, and you know how they grab you and you grab them, and they go, I'll talk to you later. They know that you're not as weak as you look. Once you, but that was part of the acting, learning how to act and being a tough guy. And if you didn't look like a tough guy, you had to have a lot of mates around you in Australia.
Well, George, thank you so much.
I told you, that's some crazy stuff. I mean, crazy stuff. There was a lot of things in there that I had heard parts and pieces, but this was, and what about those questions from the audience? I mean, I think there were some really great questions. My favorite one was when that young man says to George about Daniel Craig's movies, you should check them out. They're pretty good. Love that moment, and the audience loved it as well. But it was a great way to get to know George Lazenby. We certainly got to know very interesting side of George Lazenby, and what a memorable night because of it. Anyway, again, thank you to the Spy Museum for giving us those seats, making it happen behind the scenes. They're so embracing of the fans and the Bond experience, and we love that. We want to come and visit you in your new place. But for now, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience, and we will see you very soon. Take care. Oh, hey, you're still here. I didn't even know. Listen, while you're here, if you want, so I would actually go to this button right here and click on it, because then you actually subscribe to our vlogs. It's amazing. You get to see all the upcoming stuff first. You get notifications. It screams at you while you're at work. It's absolutely amazing. Just click on this button, hit subscribe. Just move your cursor, move